Whether it's ancient combat or modern sport, winning is what it's all about. But how do you win? This man has learned the hard way. Now, he's ready to show you.
It was the end of an era. With the invention of the gun, the age of chivalry was blown away. For the first time, little skill or strength was needed to master a weapon. The gun was the great equalizer. From the crude medieval hand cannon to the lethal accuracy of the Kentucky rifle. This time on Conquest, how to win with early firearms. Coming in, guys. Any of you recognize this? It's the granddaddy of all firearms. This is the matchlock designed over 500 years ago. Now, a soldier would have to train for his whole lifetime to master the bow, even a sword. But with this little baby, even an idiot could be trained to become a deadly force on the battlefield within a few days. At least that's the theory. So, team, your challenge will be to learn how to use the first 3 major types of early firearm. And then you will work together as a small militia unit to complete a challenge that I will be setting for you. But before we even get to fire one of these monsters, we have to make our own gunpowder and ammunition. Let's go. A gunpowder is made of 5 parts charcoal, 5 parts sulfur, and 7 parts of saltpeter. Now, saltpeter is a naturally occurring mineral that you can find in caves. Now, would you give that a stir, Gary? The problem is that in medieval Europe, saltpeter was in short supply, and so people made their own. They made it by boiling down animal droppings. Fortunately for you, we've got enough gunpowder, so all you need to do is make the ammunition, which is over here. First thing you're going to need is tongs. Now, you would melt your lead in a container like this. And this is heavy stuff, and when it's molten, it's like water, so you've got to be really careful not to splash it around. It'll really hurt if it gets on your skin. Here's your bullet mold. See the 2 halves that make the round ball? Pick up the lead and pour it in the top. Wait till it cools a little while, and open up the bullet mold and tap out your bullet. There it is. Wait till it's cool enough to handle. Take this part of the bullet mold, and you just take that little screw off because you want your ball to be as round as possible. There it is.
The first guns in Europe were seen in the 14th century and were nothing more than scaled-down cannons. To fire a hand cannon, you would have to hold a metal tube with one hand and with the other shove a red-hot poker into a hole. This ignited the powder inside, firing the lead ball, while you hoped the whole thing didn't explode in your face. It was very inaccurate and more often dangerous to its owner than a potential target. The next development was the arquebus. It was a huge improvement over the hand cannon and actually looked like a modern-day rifle. You could steady it with both hands, place its stock against your shoulder for support, look down the barrel to aim, and then use your finger to pull a trigger, moving a smouldering piece of cord, which ignited the powder and...
All right, guys, I think you've made enough ammunition. Now comes the time when you start using it. Gather it up for me. So before you actually get to fire your matchlock, you've got to learn about a whole load of equipment.
Each team member will need to carry a bandolier with hanging bottles. Each is filled with enough powder for 1 shot. Also needed is a powder flask to prime the pan ready for ignition. A musket rest will help steady this 6-foot-long weapon so you can aim accurately. A knapsack will carry our lead balls, wadding, matches, rope, and all the tools necessary to clean and maintain this huge weapon. This equipment, together with the matchlock, make musketeers rather immobile and ruin any chances for sneak attacks.
All right, gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for. Time to try your very own matchlock. The length of these barrels meant that the ball could fly further and faster than ever before. But they are not easy to use, as you'll find out.
In the training manuals of the day, 48 steps were said to be necessary to load and fire a matchlock. But I've knocked them down to 10 essential moves.
First, light your match. This is the match, and to light it, you need to use flint, small piece of charred cloth that goes on the flint, and a steel striker. Strike the flint, make a spark to go onto the char cloth. There we go. We put the char cloth onto the match. Your match is now lit. Next, you take your weapon in your left hand. Keep hold of your match in the left hand too. You want to keep that well away from your powder, otherwise you will blow yourself up. Next, you take a bottle of powder. You empty the powder down the barrel. You take a ball from your pouch, place the ball down the barrel, take out the ramrod, and ram the ball well down into the powder. You are now loaded. It's time to prime the pan. You open up the firing pan. You take your priming powder from the priming flask and fill the pan full of powder. Close the pan cover. You are now ready to set your match. You take your match and you put it in the lock, hence match lock. Next, make ready. Place the musket on the rest. Tuck the butt hard against your shoulder. Lean well back. Get your face out of the way. Open the pan. You aim. Give fire!
Okay, team, now it's your turn. They all seem to be having problems with these cumbersome weapons, remembering in which order to put in the powder and the shot. But soon they get the hang of it and successfully load their matchlock muskets. Now we're all loaded, let's bring our guys to some targets and see if they can actually aim these guns. These targets are only 50 feet away, but our team are having a tough time hitting any of them.
What have we got? One hit there, another hit here, no hits on this one, and here we've got, well, it's just hitting the corner there. So, out of 12 shots, we got 3 hits on target, and you, Mike, didn't get any hits at all. What went wrong?
Well, this is a very hard gun. I mean, I gotta use 2 fingers. I'm used to just using one, and when I, actually have the aim and I'm looking down the barrel, I can't get my eyesight, so I kind of just do a little Forrest Gump thing and close my eyes and pray that it's gonna hit the target. And obviously, someone wasn't good to me.
Yeah, okay, right. Well, what I'm gonna do, guys, is move you 10 foot closer and have you all firing at a single target. Let's see how we do, okay?
All right.
Come on. Well, that's a lot better, gentlemen. 3 hits out of 4 shots. This demonstrates the limitations of the matchlock and why they had to be used in unison and at short range. These weapons have a smooth bore barrel, which means that when you fire your lead ball, it literally bounces down and out of the barrel, making it really inaccurate. The only way to win with these weapons is to band together and work in unison. Fire all together like some kind of giant shotgun. At least that way you have a chance of hitting your enemy before he hits you. All right, gentlemen, you've all had a go with the matchlock with varying degrees of success. So it's time to present you with the next gun that our ancestors took into battle, which is this one, the flintlock musket. Now, this was a huge improvement over the matchlock. For centuries, it had been known that if you struck a flint against metal, then you would get a spark. So, no more burning matches, which meant that you could operate much more efficiently in damp and windy conditions. So, come round here, let's take one of these each and try them out.
Loading of the flintlock is similar to the matchlock, but simpler and faster, partly due to pre-made paper cartridges which contained powder and shot. First, a soldier would pull back the cock holding the flint to half cock, then tear off the end of the cartridge with his teeth and pour a little on the priming pan, and then close the pan cover. The rest of the powder would be poured down the barrel, followed by the ball. He would then be careful not to fire in this position, as that would be going off half-cocked. So he'd thumb the cock all the way back to full cock, ready to fire. Aim! When we return, it's time to try out our flintlocks on the firing range. Fire!
All right, guys, let's see if you're any better with the flintlocks than the matchlocks. There are two targets over there representing an enemy force that will be on top of you in 2 minutes. So I want to see how many accurate shots you can get off in 2 minutes. Are you loaded? Make ready. Aim.
Fire! They all get off to a good start. But the first to reload is Heath. Soon followed by Dan. Mike is the next to be loaded, but his flint doesn't strike. So he recocks and tries again. In his haste, he totally loses control as his flintlock jumps off his shoulder and bounces off his face. Gary also has a problem with his flint, and he resets his flintlock, but only to half cock. Realizing his error, he goes to full cock, and still nothing. 1 minute! Halfway through, and Heath's loaded again. As Heath rips off another cartridge, Dan readies his third shot. Gary has decided his flintlock has had it, and throws in the towel. But the others keep going. Ceasefire! All right, gentlemen, let's see how you did.
That's some expertise there.
All right, gentlemen, I see one clear hit, and someone hit the post holding the target up there. That was out of 12 shots. So, not so good. But I guess if there was a line of armed men marching towards you, you might have got better hits. But we had some problems, didn't we? You had a serious misfire.
Yeah, when I fired my first shot, my flint just completely disintegrated from the gun. I mean, it just exploded. And when I reloaded the second time, I didn't have an igniter to, fire the gun again.
I guess you'd have probably had a spare flint in your knapsack, but at the same time, it would take you at least 2 minutes to put it back.
Right, then I'd be in serious trouble after that.
In fact, you'd be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. All right. And Dan, you got 4 shots off.
Yes, sir.
How did it feel?
I was great, except for a few minor problems. When his flint disintegrated, I had chunks of it hitting me in the face, and it sliced up part of my hand.
You actually got cut there.
Yeah, and then it momentarily kind of blinded me because a little bit got into my eye. So then it was just sort of blindly reaching around trying to keep going, knowing that in 2 minutes, I could possibly be dead.
Now, you had an interesting little kickback, didn't you?
Yeah, basically what happened was I was such in a hurry to hit the target that when I pulled up my gun, I had it kind of up high, which is a no-no, and you should have it down in your shoulder. So when it went off, it kind of flipped up, and I caught it by the thing here and pretty much peed my pants right at that moment.
It looked very dramatic.
Yes.
Anyway, I've got one more challenge for you. In fact, for one of you, I'm going to choose our best shooter. Now, you got 4 shots off and you were about to fire a 5th, so I'm going to call you our best flintlock man. Now, do you see the movie Last of the Mohicans? Yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis runs along, and as he runs, he loads his weapon and fires it. Now, we don't know if that's possible, so you're going to find out for us.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. Thanks a lot.
One, 2, 3, go!
The hardest part was trying to work with the gun bouncing and getting this target with the ramrod. It didn't go down easily at all. I had to force it and actually throw the ramrod down. But it's actually hitting the target, no. I didn't feel that I was able to really accurately hit it.
Coming in, guys. Here's the last gun you have to learn how to use for the final challenge. The Kentucky rifle. It's been called the first truly American gun, designed with the frontiersman in mind. Perfect for hunting, more accurate than any other gun before it. So, let's put its reputation to the test. The rabbit to the right of the target was killed. Now, there's one thing about this weapon that is making your shots more accurate. You remember I mentioned it's a rifle, not a musket. That means it has rifling. It's a spiral groove right the way down the barrel. And when you fire, that groove gives a turn to the ball so that it comes out of the barrel spinning. And that improves the trajectory. It's like a forward pass in football. It's a really noticeable improvement. All right, gentlemen, you've all tried your best with the cumbersome matchlock. Some of you got pretty good with the Brown Bess, the flintlock, and with the Kentucky rifle. So I think you're ready for your final challenge. Tomorrow morning, we're going to give you 10 targets, all of different sizes, different distances. You're going to be using different weapons to fire at the different targets. So 2 of you are going to have the matchlock, 1 of you will have a Brown Bess, and 1 will have the Kentucky. You have to decide which of you has which weapon, and which weapon would be best for each target. You have 2 minutes to shoot, not much time to reload. So, good luck.
All right, scoop.
There is only an hour or so of light left for our team to figure out their tactics and get in some last-minute practice before their ultimate early guns challenge. The time has come for our 4 sharpshooters to be put to the Conquest Challenge. Throughout this wooded valley are 10 targets that they must hit as many times as possible within 2 minutes. Some are far and some are close. Our team had last night to decide who will be using each weapon and how, as a team, they are going to complete my final test.
So have you decided which of you is using which weapon?
Yeah, I didn't like the Brown Bess, so I'm going to go with the Kentucky. It's got great accuracy.
I chose the flintlock Brown Bess because I've had more time and training on it.
Chose matchlock just because I was having difficulty with the flint actually striking and igniting for me, so this is a little easier.
I also chose the matchlock because it has an easy trigger pull, as well as also because when I used that, the Brown Bess, we all saw what happened with that, and it wasn't a good experience.
All right, gentlemen. In the valley behind me, there are 10 targets. In front of each set of targets, there is a firing line. You may not step beyond the firing line. You will have 2 minutes to shoot as many targets as you can. Your 2 minutes is starting in 3 seconds. 2, 1, go!
And they're off. Right away, Heath hits one of his targets. Gary continues downhill, while our 2 matchlock men load up for their close, larger targets. Dan knocks over the suit of armor, and Mike gets his first hit. Heath loads the flintlock again, and gets a powerful hit. And our rifleman hits the closer gong target. Heath quickly loads on the run, while our matchlock men slowly pick off their targets. Gary tries to load quickly, but gets his rifle jammed. Meanwhile, Heath aims slow and steady. Gary seems to have finally rammed the ball down the barrel and prepares to fire at his final target, the distant officer on horseback. Dan's matchlock is loaded again, but he has a misfire. Only seconds left, and Heath goes for his final target and gets it. Gary aims at his final target and misses.
So, on the matchlock range, we got 2 hits here, a 3rd hit, and a 4th hit, which didn't just penetrate the armor, it literally blew it apart. No wonder they stopped wearing this stuff. On the Brown Bess range, out of 5 shots, we got 4 hits. With the Kentucky rifle, we hit the near target, but not the really distant one. So on the whole, gentlemen, that's pretty good. Well done. The invention of the gun really made it possible for anyone to become proficient within just a few days, instead of training for a lifetime with a sword or the longbow. Early firearms totally changed the role of the common infantryman. Today, guns may look different and fire hundreds of rounds a minute, but their basic design is the same as these grand old weapons, which in the hands of a trained man can still hold their own.
Whether it's ancient combat or modern sport, winning is what it's all about. But how do you win? This man has learned the hard way. Now, he's ready to show you.
Throughout history, one group of fighters has inspired terror in their victims: pirates! Brutal and bloodthirsty men who gave no mercy in combat and expected none if they were captured. We look at the weapons and tactics they used, and we learn how to win as pirates. All right, team. Your task is to find out how the pirates fought and how they survived. Now, most of us have seen the Hollywood movies.
Like Disney's current hit, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl.
You will learn how to fight with the weapons the pirates actually used. And your final challenge will be to attack a real ship. You will decide your tactics, you will board the ship, you will fight with and overcome the crew, and you will steal a huge amount of treasure. You could all become rich. Or dead.
For as long as there have been ships trading across the seas, there have been pirates trying to steal their cargoes. We will concentrate on the classic period of piracy from 1600 to 1725 in the Caribbean Sea. The earliest targets of the pirates were the Spanish ships, carrying vast amounts of gold and silver back from the New World.
Right, team, welcome to the Lynx, a beautiful square topsail schooner. You're standing in the waist, the widest part of the ship, and I'm now going to give you a tour around the whole vessel at the double. Come on, follow me. Mind that carronade. This is the deck house, foremast, foresail. Up here is the catheads. This is where the anchors are secured. Here's the staysail boom and the staysail. Come on. Going aft again. Back to the midships. Come on. So we're back amidships. This is the boom, watch out. The hold is directly beneath our feet. And this is the quarterdeck. This is the most important area of the ship with the wheel. This is where the ship is helmed from. So, this is a very dangerous environment if you're not used to it. But this is your field of battle, because this is the ship that you will be attacking as pirates. So you better find out quick how pirates work, how they operate, and how they fight.
Not all pirates were, in fact, pirates. When two nations were at war, each would give a license to the commander of a private ship, a privateer. He was allowed to attack and seize the vessels of the enemy. Another type of pirate was the buccaneer, who fought as much on land as by sea. They began as a group of wild hunters in the Caribbean island of Hispaniola. They lived by cooking and drying meat over open fires, in a process known by the French word boucaner, hence buccaneers. Around 1630, the Spanish drove them out of the island. A big mistake. They gathered together and attacked Spanish ships, coastal cities, and ports.
Professional pirates were true seamen, able to cross great distances in small ships. They were mostly French, British, Dutch. Some of them joined up when their own ships were captured, and some seamen were considered particularly valuable. Navigators, carpenters, and coopers. Those were the guys who made and maintained the barrels. Essential. All food and drink was kept in them. Now, whether they were forced or not, every pirate had to sign articles. It's a kind of contract. Now, I've got
The
some...
articles were strict rules of behaviour agreed to in advance before a voyage began or before a new crew member was allowed to join. They dealt with the rules of the ship and how it was to be run, as well as important questions like, were women to be allowed on board? Some captains did try to keep women off their ships, but still there were plenty of females aboard these vessels, some of them even becoming famous pirates themselves.
All right, team, come and sign the articles.
Most importantly, these articles spelled out exactly how any loot was to be shared out. But very few merchant ships carried gold and silver.
Most cargoes were bales of cotton, silk, tobacco, and slaves. Pirates had to survive for long periods at sea, and there were very few ports that they could go to for provisions and repairs. So many attacks on ships occurred out of necessity, and the only loot was food, water, spare ropes, and sails. Most pirate careers only lasted a couple of years because the main reality about pirate life was death.
The mortality rate was very high, from storms and shipwreck, starvation and bad water, murder and disease. And then there was combat. But there the pirates had an advantage. The largest pirate ships were armed with 30 or 40 guns and were packed with 150 to 200 men. More than enough to man every cannon and have a strong boarding party ready to go. But most pirate ships were much smaller. They were sloops of about 80 feet, 40 men, and no more than 12 guns. Many pirate attacks were actually carried out in small boats, launched from the ship itself. How could so few pirates hope to capture large merchant ships?
There were never large numbers of pirates in the Caribbean, only about 2,000 in 1720. Pirates in small groups relied on their superiority of firepower and combat ability. Most of these merchant seamen were not fighting men. They had little experience in combat, and they were terrified of you and your skill with weapons. And that will be the key to your success.
It's time for our team to get physical. They know the target. Now they must get to know the weapons.
This is the standard equipment for a fighting man of about 1650. And the first thing we have to learn is that all of this is totally useless on board ship. You can make this breastplate strong enough to withstand a musket ball, but it's so heavy you wouldn't want to use it on board. A ship is a totally unique fighting environment. Look at this sword. Beautiful weapon, but where are you going to get the space to wave this around on deck? Let's get him out of this stuff. This is all fine on land, but on board ship you need a totally different set of weapons. Now, there wasn't much room to fight in, so all of the weapons were shorter. This is one of the heaviest. It's a basket-hilted broadsword. This one's a Scottish design. Now, something like this had a long, wide blade with a really strong basket hilt to protect the hand. Now, the usual style was chops, slashes, and stabs. One of the benefits of this, too, is that it's so strong and heavy that you could defend yourself against just about anything. This one is called a spadroon. It's a bit like a small sword used for fancy fencing, but the blade on this one is heavier. This wasn't very strong, but it had one great advantage. You might not have room to swing a cut, but you always had room for some quick thrusts. Ha! Next, the saber. Much more elegant and refined, often used by naval officers. But it wasn't just a fancy weapon. It's lighter than the basket hilt, and you could make a series of really fast cuts with it using a technique called the molinello. Now, for this, you needed really strong wrists, and the cuts you landed would not be heavy, but they would be fast. And with a blade like this, really thin and sharp, you could cut your opponent to ribbons. Now, the classic pirate weapon is the cutlass. Now, this had all the factors for a perfect shipboard weapon. It's not too long, but it's strong enough to pack a really heavy punch. And it's light enough to use fast at full energy for several minutes. And that's all you needed for a pirate fight that rarely lasted any longer. It has a vicious point, a razor-sharp single edge, and a strong hilt for both protection and attack. Now, this is the pirate weapon to beat. So, let's try them all out.
It takes some time for our team to get used to the feel and weight of these weapons. Mark and Dan try out the heavy broadsword. Alina and Mario use the lightest and quickest blades, the cutlasses. Chris and Scott are using the sabers.
All right, team, gather round. Now, listen, team. Do you know what's going to happen to you if you don't win? If you get caught, you've got a year in a prison cell, a quick trial, and absolutely certain death by hanging. Pirates had no choice but to be completely aggressive, totally savage. They had nothing to lose. Now, you're being way too gentle with each other, all right? Now, forget the sword play. Just think murder. So, like, I'm going to attack you. Come on, defend yourself, all right? Here we go. Ha! Yes. All right. Now, when you hit that deck, you just attack. You don't even think about defending yourselves. You have to hit them so hard and so fast that they have no chance to stand up to you. So I want you to pair up again, and I want you just to do aggressive attacking strokes. Let's try it.
Our team have learnt the basics of pirates and their weapons. But now it's time to get down and very dirty. The team is fighting hard with their pirate weapons. Now some of them are quite skilled. They need to be, if they are to succeed in their challenge to attack and capture a ship.
Great. Okay, back the other way. Now, wait a minute. If his blade is up, that means he's got aggressive intent. He's going to fight you, so you've got to clear it and then carve through him, drive through him. Okay, here we go. That's good, that's good. That's better. Work on that. Great. All right, okay, right. You've got to be much, much bigger, more aggressive. You're still fencing with each other. Every single stroke, you want to chop his head off. Yeah, there, all the way, there. Really hard, okay? Okay, all right, stop there. Now, this little fancy move you did here, that cut there and this bind over, it's very nice, lovely move, but it's completely useless, yeah? You're not fencing with him, you want to kill him. You've got to think carving your opponent up and moving through him.
Once the brakes are off, the team are much more vicious, much more effective. Even with rehearsed moves, this is fast and dangerous. Alina has no problem turning on the heat. Just as well we're fighting on sand. But there is still one element missing.
Terror! Watch this. We'll do the 3 strokes, do and a slash. Yes, 1, 2, 3, and a slash. Okay, turn around. Now, you see the difference between that and this? Ah! All right, that's what I want to see. Your whole body engaged. Shout at your opponent, scream at them. That's how you win.
As their skill increases, their inhibitions fall away. They really get into it. Suddenly the team is starting to fight like real pirates. So, it's time for them to dress up and look the part. And now we're going to make it even more difficult for them.
In every pirate movie you've ever seen, the sea is absolutely calm, which means there is no wind for the sails, which means the pirate ships can catch you anyway. You have to learn to fight in the worst possible conditions on a rolling, pitching deck. Let me introduce you to the infernal rolling deck machine!
Keeping your balance is an essential part of any combat. The team has to learn just how difficult it's going to be to fight aboard a ship. First up is Chris with saber against Mark with broadsword. Then it's Mario with cutlass and Scott with short saber. And then Alina and Dan with cutlasses. The guys seem to be falling at her feet.
All right, there's one more absolutely essential thing that we have to learn. No pirate could do without this thing. You've got to do it. Sewing. Essential for every seaman. You've got to sew your clothes, your sails, your boots, bags, everything. We need a sewer. Alina here has volunteered you. Me? Absolutely essential. You have the enormous privilege of making the pirate flag.
As the pirates approached their victim, they would often fly a fake flag until they were close enough to raise their own. Once they saw the pirate flag, most merchant ships gave up quickly. But the famous skull and crossbones is a modern invention. There were many different pirate ensigns, and our Chris has come up with his own variation.
Hey, look at this! That's really good. I got some shirts you can work on. Pirates relied on terror. Even those who surrendered might be subjected to barbarity, torture, even murder. But most pirates just wanted loot. Only if the victim tried to escape, or even worse, fight back, could the slaughter really become serious. The pirates' first and most persuasive weapon was firepower.
Most pirate ships were not big enough to carry really heavy guns, and their cannon were unlikely to sink a ship. But when cannonballs went through a wooden ship, they threw up splinters, which cut men to pieces.
Different types of shot were used for different purposes. Aside from the usual round shot, there was also chain shot. 2 balls joined together by a chain. Now this was used against rigging, and it could cut through just about anything. But the most vicious ammunition of all was used for really close range. Grape shot. A huge amount of this could be loaded into a single cannon. It would make a real mess of anyone who got in the way. But cannon were heavy and cumbersome. They were best used when the ships were approaching each other. Once you made really close contact, this was the beast you wanted to use, the swivel gun. Now this was fast to load and easily maneuverable and aimable. And this thing could clear a whole deck. Personal firearms. Now the musket was a long-range weapon, better from ship to ship rather than in close combat. But the best was this, called a blunderbuss. Now this was like a huge shotgun. You could load it full of every kind of buckshot and pieces of old iron and tin, make a nasty hole in a man, this would. But the very best close-quarter firearm was, of course, the pistol. Now you'd have a lot of these pistols shoved in every possible belt and crossbelt. The problem is that at sea, gunpowder becomes damp very easily. So you'd make your attack with a whole load of these. If you misfired, you just dropped it, pulled another one, used that one. Let's have a look at these. Okay, what's the best range for these?
Close, 20 feet, 10 feet.
Let's have a look. About 20 feet away, in the heat of battle, I might well miss you. These are extremely inaccurate. Even at 10 feet, if I stop, aim, fire, I immediately become a target. What happens if my powder is damp, if I misfire? What happens if he has a pistol? I've had it. The best way to use these is in your left hand, with your sword in your right. And the best range to use these is no range at all. You come in hard with your cutlass, engage his sword, stick him right in the guts, then you fire. He drops. If you've got another pistol, you go to it. If you haven't, you turn that in your hand, now you've got a club. On shipboard, this probably did as much damage as this did. So, there you are. You got your swords, you got your pistols, you got all the weapons you need, all the skills to attack your ship.
I have brought the team back aboard the ship. They need to work out their tactics, including how to climb up those steep sides.
And once we hit the deck, we got to keep moving. We can't stop for a second.
Yeah, but if we get caught in the mid-deck, we're targets for guns on both sides of the ship.
Maybe we should come up this rigging.
You know what? We can take these ropes and swing across. Or we can just cut the rigging and drop the sails and create chaos.
Yeah. All right, guys, listen, some of these ideas are really good, but some of them are getting a bit Hollywood. Have you ever actually tried to cut one of these ropes with a sword, all right? It's just not possible. And as for climbing up the rigging, well, all you do if you get up here is you make yourself into a magnificent target to be shot at from down below.
And whose idea was it, swinging on the ropes? Coming up, the team have to get serious as they try to capture a ship at sea. At last, the team is ready for their final challenge, to mount a pirate attack on a ship at sea. The pirates have sailed up close to the target ship, which refuses to surrender. The pirates fire their cannon, swivel guns, muskets and pistols. The object is to disable the sails and masts of the victim and keep the defenders from trying to sail her away. The boarding party hurries into the ship's boat. The pirates remaining on the ship keep up a rain of musket fire and shot to keep the defenders' heads down. This gives cover to the boarding party, who row the short distance across to the target. In the bows of their boat is another swivel gun, deadly at close range. The defenders, cowering under a hail of fire, do their best to fire back. But the pirates get to their target and swarm up the sides of the merchant ship, weapons in hand. 3 men run quickly to the quarterdeck to get control of the wheel and to deal with the seamen there. One of them puts up a good fight. In the meantime, 2 more pirates hack and slash their way onto the foredeck. They make short work of the opposition. On the main deck, those sailors who avoid the pistol cannot escape the sword. The inexperienced crew cannot withstand the savagery of the pirate attack. The ship's owner, who refused to surrender, is murdered. His crew, who dared to defy the pirates, is cut to pieces. Despite a last stand on the quarterdeck, they don't have a chance. It's all over in minutes. A few well-armed men have used terror, speed, and overwhelming force to defeat a larger crew and capture the ship.
All right, team, well done. Here is your treasure.
What's that?
Molasses.
What?
Well, you use it to make rum, you know.
You mean we did all that for...
Well, you can't have gold and silver every time, can you? Our team hasn't just learnt new techniques of combat. They've learnt how to apply them with the brutality that made pirates feared throughout the oceans of the world. Their lives were short and savage. But like our team, they had to learn how to survive and how to win with the weapons of the pirates.
This is the Roman Legion, the greatest military force in ancient history, and the basis for every professional army since. But just how did the citizens of a small Italian town come to conquer the world?
This time on Conquest, how to win with the weapons of Rome.
Team, this is going to be tough. We're going to put you in Roman armor, give you Roman equipment, and train you to fight with the weapons and tactics of the legionary. But it's not just about combat. It's about getting into the mindset of the Roman soldier. His absolute confidence in victory, his refusal to accept defeat. We're going to make you invincible. And then, for your final challenge, we're going to send you into battle against the barbarians. Welcome to the Roman army.
In the early days of Rome, army service was compulsory for every Roman citizen who held property. It was reasoned that these men would fight to defend their property and also fight to gain more of it. The Roman state expanded because its army was incredibly aggressive and disciplined. Each nation they defeated would be offered a chance to join the expanding empire. The Romans were hard to refuse. The alternative was annihilation. Enemy states became allies, and their soldiers became auxiliaries in the Roman army.
The Romans copied from their enemies. Weapons, armor, formations, tactics, anything that worked. This is mail armor, copied from the Celts and in use throughout the Roman period. You could stab through mail, but it would withstand a cut. Only problem was a really hard blow would break the bone beneath it. So, from the 1st century AD, the Roman legionary wore this, the lorica segmentata. This was made of curved iron plates, and it gave absolutely brilliant protection to the body and to the shoulders. The helmets were of many styles, but the same basic design, with this strengthening piece across the forehead, with these extra eyebrows here. Sometimes crossbars reinforced the whole skull. These cheek pieces protected the face, and the whole helmet gave you excellent vision, and these ear slots allowed you to hear. It was vital to be able to hear commands in the Roman army. Turn to face me. There's also this very large neck guard. If I cut down at your head, your natural instinct is to turn away and hunch up. And as you do that,
That neck guard comes down, slides over the shoulder to protect your neck and shoulders. The Roman legionary was a valuable investment. You were worth protecting. Team, get into your armor.
Around 100 BC, the Roman general Marius reorganized the legion. First, he opened it to all Roman citizens, whether they held property or not. They would be a permanent standing army of paid soldiers. Many new recruits couldn't afford their own armor and weapons, and these had to be supplied by the state. So for the first time, military equipment became standardized.
Weapons. First, the shield, the scutum. This was made like plywood, strips of wood glued together, made into shape, covered with linen and leather, with a boss and edging of bronze or iron. Now this was shaped to curve around the body. It's over ½ an inch thick, and until you get used to it, it's heavy. Next, the pilum. This is the javelin, the Roman throwing spear. You'll have two of these, one light and one heavy. Around your waist, you're wearing a cingulum. Here, around the parts that you might wish to use after the battle. Also on the belt is this, the Roman pugio, a stabbing dagger. This will punch its way through just about anything. On a baldric from the shoulder hangs your sword. Now this is on the right hip, so that you can draw it without it getting caught up in your shield. This is the Gladius Hispaniensis. It's a sword copied from the Celts of Spain. This was the sword which won an empire. Legionaries, take up your helmets, your shields, and your javelins.
There is a problem with every well-equipped army. It's followed by a baggage train, which moves very slowly and needs lots of protection. The Roman general Marius reduced it in size. Now each squad of 8 men was allowed 1 mule to carry a tent, millstones, and extra supplies. Everything else was to be carried by the legionary.
Are you ready to go? Yeah! No, you're not. Every legionary needs one of these. A pole with a crosspiece. On this you will have a cloak, a bedroll, mess tins, water bottle, between 3 and 15 days of supplies, and any personal kit, such as a writing tablet and toilet paper. In addition, each of you will carry at least one of the following: a wicker basket, a bucket, a chain, an adze, a hatchet, and stakes. Also, a shovel, an entrenching tool, a turf cutter, and this, a delabra, the Roman pickaxe, because the Roman soldier was also a builder.
The average Roman soldier was short, strong, and extremely fit. They had to be. Every night on campaign, the legion would spend up to 2 hours building a fortified camp, digging a ditch and a parapet, and putting their stakes on top of it to form a palisade. They slept well and safely, and the next day, if things went badly, they had a camp ready to come back to. The soldiers worked in full armor, while others protected them. If they were attacked, they were ready to defend themselves immediately.
The legion had to be able to march 24 miles in 5 hours, and believe me, that is fast. So in your first hour, you lot should easily be able to cover 50 lengths of this field, which is just under 5 miles.
We gotta march? No way. When do we get to use the weapons?
This soldier has just disobeyed an order. The Roman army is held together by discipline. So you lot will all march with full weapons, but you will march with full kit. Romans were usually outnumbered, but they had excellent communications and a superb road system. It was vital to get the legions rapidly to wherever the trouble was. And these guys could march faster than any other foot soldier.
Even in peacetime, a legionary had to route march 3 times a month in full kit, which weighed between 80 and 100 pounds. The legionaries called themselves after the name of the general who thought up this brilliant idea, Marius's mules.
Team, halt! Fall out. Pathetic. How's the morale?
Oh, it's great.
So it should be. This is an army of professional long-service soldiers, well paid, fully equipped, excellent health and welfare benefits, and a good pension after 25 years of service, although, of course, you weren't allowed to marry.
Ah, you're kidding.
Well, you've got other things to think about. You're about to meet your new centurion.
Centurions were the drill sergeants of their day. They ran the Roman army with extreme discipline and were often more feared than the enemy.
Parete star, star. Ad gladium, cleaner.
One particularly nasty fellow was nicknamed Give Me Another for his practice of breaking his staff over his soldiers' backs.
Gentlemen, this is the 6th Legion Victrix, and here is Dave Michaels, also known as Flavius Crispus, your new centurion. Flavius, these men are tired and they are hungry, so perhaps just an hour of drill before lunch?
With this sorry-looking lot, at least an hour. Parate mue! Mue! See it.
The Legion was made up of about 4,800 fighting men, plus about 1,000 support staff. It was divided into 10 cohorts. The first cohort was extra large, while the other 9 were each made up of 6 centuries. The century was the basic tactical unit and contained about 80 men under a centurion. Each unit broke down further into teams of 8 men who shared a tent. Discipline in the Roman army was swift and brutal. Any regiment that showed cowardice in battle faced decimation. Today, we take that word to mean an overwhelming destruction of an army's ranks. But to the Romans who invented it, it meant killing 1 out of every 10 soldiers in a regiment that required discipline. The most famous act of decimation took place during the slave uprising of 73 BC, led by the gladiator Spartacus. 2 legions who lost to Spartacus in battle were duly decimated by their commanders. So there was ample incentive for soldiers to train hard and perform well in battle. On the battlefield, units had to move around each other and support each other with speed and discipline. There was a complex system of commands by various types of trumpet. Some designed to be heard at a great distance over the noise of battle. There were also visual cues. Each century, cohort, and the legion itself had a standard which it followed. These were considered sacred objects, and the loss of a standard was an unbearable disgrace.
Vendata captate, pick up your shield. Ad testudinam, moe.
It was essential for every man to learn the battlefield commands and movements. This one is the testudo, or tortoise, mainly used for siege warfare. At last, our team is ready for the next stage. They have the equipment, the discipline, and an understanding of drill and tactics. More important, they have the weapons. Next, they learn to use them. Our team has learnt the basics of drill and discipline in the Roman Legion. Now it's time to fight.
You have to understand the fighting spirit of the Romans. They were entirely aggressive. Even when they were attacked themselves, they moved forward into the attack. They took the fight to the enemy. Now, they had big shields. These weren't to hide behind. These were offensive weapons. Step forward. I'm going to walk through you. Try and stop me. You take my point. And look at the armor. The Romans had the technology to cover the entire body in articulated armor. They chose not to, because with the lorica segmentata, you could run. And I don't mean backwards. Your first weapon is the pilum. This is a short-range weapon. Very heavy, deadly, brilliantly designed. A rain of these would come down on the front ranks of the enemy. And if he was unarmored, he'd be dead. If he had just a weak shield, this point would break through it, and the metal shaft would continue through and pin the man behind it. If he had a heavy shield, well, this point would stick in the wood, and this shaft was designed to bend on impact, making the shield completely useless. This wasn't a defensive weapon to hold an enemy off. It was a vicious, aggressive tool for killing. The pilum was just to soften them up. The Roman legion was a machine with 5,000 blades, and the gladius was the blade. It's unusual to be able to hold a weapon in your hand and know that this changed the world. And it's so simple. Why this weapon when the Romans had so many other choices? I'll show you. With a long sword, you need lots of room to be able to wield it effectively, which is hopeless for formation fighting. You could use a shield with it, but the shield had to be small and held in one hand. And most importantly, wielding this can be very, very tiring. Now, there is an alternative, the falcata. Now, this was used by the Greeks and the Spanish Celts. It's extremely heavy and very effective. Step forward. But in close combat, you had only one real stroke with this, the downward chop. And every time you raise it to make your attack, he'd stab you. Now, the gladius. Step forward. The Romans knew how to cut with this weapon, to clear an opponent's blade, or to attack the head, the shoulders, or the arm. But they also knew this was a complete waste of time. This weapon is designed for thrusting. Here I am, tucked in behind my shield. I can push forwards, but it's very hard to push me back in this position, and my gladius is at the level of his stomach. If I stab forwards, I'll hit him in the guts, in the testicles, or the femoral artery at the top of the thigh. There's just a chance that he may parry my incoming thrust. Then I stab upwards to the throat, the face, or the eyes. It's almost impossible to avoid at this range, because the crucial thing about this attack is speed. You use your arm like a piston. Stab, 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 stab! It's completely simple, absolutely brutal, and you will practice it repeatedly.
Romans trained for 6 months before being accepted into the legion. They had to be able to read and write to understand written orders. Aside from learning the commands, formations, drill and marching, they spent hours on weapon technique. Throwing the pilum and using wooden swords of double the standard weight to build up their strength. They practiced against each other and against a pella, a thick wooden pole as high as a man.
In close order combat, each man is given 3 feet of space. You are not bunched up. Your shields are not overlapping. You have to give the gladius room to do its work. The weapon is short, aggressive. You have to get in close. Let's see the machine in action. Ready? Advance!
You can see why some have described the advancing Roman legion as a many-toothed barracuda.
You have to know what weapons you're up against and how to defeat them. Over there is a group of warriors behind a wall of shields and spears. First thing is, you're going to do serious damage with your pilum. They're closely packed together and they cannot raise their shields above their heads. That's your first weapon. When you make contact, this is what you do. Step forward, step forward. I want you to fix those spears with your shields. Move in. I'm in the rank behind you, and I'm going to force my way between you, push my way through, hack and chop at these spears until they get close enough. These guys don't stand a chance. Here are 2 heavy weapons used against the Legion, the falx and the axe. Either of these can carve straight through your helmet. But if you just sit back and defend yourself, I will hack you to pieces. What you have to do with this is attack. So as I come in, you have to attack with your shield held high. Do it! Good! Because I have to use 2 hands, I'm a good target. The longsword is more difficult. I have a longer reach than you, so you have to keep driving me back. Push me onto my back foot. Do it! Don't let me have room to use this thing. That's it. Keep advancing. That's right. And remember, you can stab me 3 times for every cut I can give you.
To help meet the many types of enemy they had to face, the Romans used large numbers of auxiliary forces. These would be light infantry, cavalry, archers. These soldiers were paid less than the legionary, but after 25 years' service, they and their families could become Roman citizens, entitled to all the privileges and protections that went along with that. The auxiliaries were good soldiers, but the battles were won by the heavy infantry foot soldier of the legion. It's time to try some of the techniques we've learnt with a full-scale attack. In 2 disciplined ranks, our team charges forward. After only a small amount of training, the effect is already obvious. The enemy front line would be devastated by a hail of pila just seconds before the Romans smashed into them and cut them to pieces with the sword. As the enemy were bunched up, the Roman rear ranks would throw their pila over their own front ranks into the densely packed mass.
It was a mincing machine, and all it takes to start a rout is for 1 man to break and run, and it won't be a Roman.
I feel great. I feel pumped. I feel like I could tear into a real army, not just hay bales now.
Lots of speed, shock, and violence. We just tore right through them.
But what would it be like against a real enemy? At last, our own legionaries are ready to face the final test, the barbarians. For their final challenge, our team is faced with a group of barbarians forming a shield wall against them. Both sides are using real weapons, but a well-thrown pilum could kill with ease. So we have substituted bales of hay for our frontline barbarians.
Gentlemen, your hour has come. There is your enemy. You will charge the hay bales, throw your peeler. You will then go through the hay bales and make contact with the barbarian force beyond. Are you ready? Attack!
The team throw their peeler with devastating accuracy. They cut through the hay bales and reform to face the enemy. The barbarians charge towards them. The shields smash together. And our team starts pushing, jabbing, and thrusting. Although outnumbered, they break through the shield wall. Once they're on the run, the barbarians are easy targets. Our team has the discipline not to chase too far and to maintain formation. Bodies litter the ground, including some of ours.
Well, you took a few casualties. Do you think you did well? Yeah! Not well enough! There's another barbarian force at the top of the hill! Including archers! Marching orders! Fast, come on!
The barbarian archers are guarding a fortification. To succeed, our team must breach the wall and eliminate the enemy force. Our team marches to meet the barbarians, who let fly with a volley of arrows. The team forms a testudo under a hail of arrows and marches slowly forward. The archers keep firing. Like an armored tank, the testudo advances unscathed towards the enemy line. Suddenly, our team changes formation. They begin the attack with swords and shields. This time, things are not so easy. Our team is exhausted. The barbarians fight as individual warriors, while our team back each other up and work together. Although the barbarians fight viciously, they are no match for our superior Roman weapons strategy and training. At last, our team mounts the fortification and can now rain blows down on the defenders. The wall is breached. The barbarians cut and run to the relative safety of the forest, perhaps to fight another day.
Well done, you look exhausted.
Yes.
But you gained the victory, and for the Romans, that's all that mattered. Our team has shown that on the right terrain, confident, well-trained, disciplined, the Roman legion was the finest fighting force in the world. We have learnt how to win with the weapons of Rome.